Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Speedrunners podcast. Today, we're doing something chill. We're talking about books because this idea came to me because, let's see, Becca, Chesh, and Eve and I are in a reading competition right now. It's like a romance challenge. Whoever can read the most prompts and like pages wins. But
We gonna win.
so a lot of us have been reading a lot. May, I don't know if you've been really into reading recently.
I past tense have been into reading. I'm slowly getting back into it after a long while of being an English major.
Let's go. All right, so how about we just get into it? My
Hell yeah.
first
We're
question,
rolling?
yeah. My first question for you guys is physical books versus ebooks versus audiobooks. Which do you prefer and why? Anyone?
Well, I hate audiobooks. No offense to anyone
I
who likes them.
I am also an audiobook hater. I
Wow.
can't follow along with the story if it's audio.
I just personally don't feel as immersed in the story when it's an audiobook. That's just like a me problem, but if it
That's
works for others, that's fine.
it's so interesting because for me, I find an audiobook to be the most immersive reading experience. Like I can get the same from a
Interesting.
physical book, but I listen to an audiobook every night as like a bedtime story kind of to help me
Uh-huh.
get to sleep because I've got a busy mind. And it's a good way to focus on something that isn't my own like fears. Um and I can like put an audiobook on and close my eyes and it's like a movie in my head. Like but like not an exciting movie, not a very vivid movie, like a very chilled out like I can see these people, I can see what's happening. And I love that. That's my favorite part about bedtime is that I get to listen to a bit of my story. But they're not my favorite. I like physical books more, especially paperbacks. I like a secondhand paperback a lot. Um, but ebooks, like I'll read an ebook. I will read an ebook, but it's really not my preference. I only read them if I can't get my hands on a physical copy of the book, or if, for example, there's a new book out and it's only out in in hardback. I'm not gonna buy a hardback. I will only buy a paperback. So, but I feel like I
I
haven't read a book if I read an ebook.
mm, really.
Yeah.
I prefer ebooks actually. Like, I guess in my ranking, it would be ebooks first, then physical books, then audiobooks. I've never really gotten into audiobooks like that. Only like probably the only ones I've seen are like if the characters are voiced differently, then I like want to hear what they sound like. But that's about it.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm also advocate for physical books, but that's because I like the visual stimulus of reading rather than the auditory stimulus because my head kind of fills in the gaps. And if I just listen to stuff, then I'm easily distracted. Like podcasts, I can't do. I have to like be watching either visual podcasts or be doing something else while I listen to the podcast. So same thing goes for audiobooks. I do ebooks for the sake of me not spending money on books and having a collection of books that just sit around. So I will read the ebook, and if I like it enough, then I will go buy the physical copy.
Mm-hmm.
But I prefer
I think
hardback over paper, or hardcover over paperback, only because I hate the pages of the front cover bending every time I open this book and then close it, and it just kind of like bends all the time. I get very irritated about that.
it's very personal, I think, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know.
I generally physical and ebooks are interchangeable for me. I can go between both mediums pretty seamlessly and I don't really have a very strong preference. But lately I've been enjoying an ebook mainly on my Kindle uh because the pages, I guess, like on a Kindle are there's less words on the pages than there are in like a physical book, so it gives me the illusion of reading faster.
That's fair.
I I actually do read faster on my Kindle. I think it's
Yeah.
the fact that instead of like having to physically turn pages, it's just a tap and I'm
Mhm.
I'm through the book.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the tactile response to physical pages though, like the
Me too.
roughness of it. I like feeling it on my thumbs as I flip the page. I think the only downside is I have a habit of reading on my side, which makes it very cumbersome to have a book on your side and holding it up in such a way that I can read it and not be irritated at the weight of the book that I'm holding and making
I
sure
have the
pages
same
don't bend
issue.
at weird angles.
Yeah, I get that as well, because sometimes I'll read in my bed, and yeah, it's not the easiest way to read a physical book. But I think
Yeah.
there's, in praise of physical books also, taking a book off a shelf and like having it on the bedside table or on my desk or something
It's
near
so
me.
aesthetic.
But like it also like feels good to have a physical object to be like,
Yeah.
oh, I can just pick this up and start
Yeah.
up my story again, whenever I want to. And obviously you can do that with like an e-reader or whatever. I guess part of my issue with I used to have an e-reader. I guess part of my issue with ebooks now is that I can only really get them on my phone.
Mm.
And that doesn't feel
Yeah.
like that's not fun. Like that's not fun to read.
I'm a big advocate of not reading ebooks on your phone because the screen is actually worse on your eyes than having like an actual e-reader
Hmm.
because
then
those
also
are built for actually sitting there with long periods of time.
I
And your
don't
phone is not.
want to have to charge my book, you know?
That's
I
Fair
fair.
will
enough.
say, as an avid Kindle user, I only charge my Kindle once every 3 to 4 weeks, and I read for 8+ hours a day.
Oh my god.
So the newer Kindles have a great battery life.
Yeah, sometimes like when I'm traveling, I'll take my Kindle with me and I don't even have to bring a charger for it, or I don't even have to charge it while I'm traveling, cuz like a single charge lasts me like nearly a week. I think my Kindle like right now it's sitting on my bed I haven't charged it in like over a month and it's not dead yet, but that's also because I haven't read in like 2 weeks, so that's also why. But I'm just trying to say, like, the battery life's pretty fucking good
Mhm.
I'm
on the newer
also
Kindles.
I like
also a big fan of Kindle Unlimited, and I cost Jeffrey Bezos money every single month because if you read more than 250 or 2,500 pages, it pays for the amount of this cost of your subscription.
That's crazy.
And I pump those books out.
I realized I said I don't like charging my book.
Mhm.
But I definitely like have to do that with my audiobooks on my phone. So
Oh
like
no.
I don't know, maybe I'm being a hypocrite. But also like there's something about audiobooks, like the human tradition of like campfire storytelling and like the prehistoric oral traditions and stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know. Part of me feels
I
like
definitely Yeah, I think if I were to like enjoy audiobooks, I think I would have to like set up like a vibe station or something to like a mock bonfire or some shit to like really get into it.
I think I was set up for success with audiobooks when because I was like I was a very difficult like kid to keep busy. So my parents just bought me like a Walkman and a bunch of CD audiobooks. And I'd listen to them in the back of the car on long journeys and stuff to be kept busy. So that's probably why I like him still.
I
see.
unfortunately have the type of ADHD where I can't physically lock myself into an audio story.
I was gonna say, I feel like my audio processing does not allow me to sit down and actually just hear an audiobook.
Like
Real.
I'm gonna be real. Sometimes when we're all just yapping and call, I'll just fully zone out and have to come back in and be like, I don't know what was happening, but I was not here for it. My ears shut off.
It kind of sucks though, because the narration for audiobooks is so. It sounds conceptually like fantastic. I know Eve
Mhm.
probably absolutely loves it since she
I
can
want to
So-
do it as
actually
a
listen to
job one day.
audiobooks.
That's what I want to do. Like when I'm not, obviously I'm sick now, so my voice sucks. But like when I'm
Mhm.
well, I love to read out loud. I used to do it for the kids I nannied.
Oh.
Yeah, there's
So
people
yeah,
on
I think I might
TikTok
do
that do audiobook narration where you can like tune in
Mm.
their live stream and it's just them in their booth like narrating a book and it's kind of cool to watch the whole process.
It's gonna be
I
me one
will
day.
say sometimes the graphic audio clips for some books that they do, like the Fourth Wing graphic audio, sounds fantastic.
I couldn't get
But they
into that. I listened to the first 20 minutes and I was like, I just wasn't enjoying it.
they
at all.
also skip so much of the actual book in graphic audios. Like they use so much of the extra time for like the background sounds and stuff.
That's
So
interesting.
I know they left out like full like paragraphs about like the dragons and shit in the graphic audio because
But
it's
that's
just
the
like
best
the
bit.
conversation. Yeah. So I don't know.
Speaking of audiobooks and ebooks, do you think that physical books will ever be obsolete?
If our current government has anything to say about it, maybe.
I think
Okay.
generally it's a little hard to say, but I think maybe in like 100 years or something like that, but not like anytime soon. Like, I don't think we're gonna see him go obsolete within our lifetime.
I think if we just keep pushing people to read Fahrenheit 451, we'll keep physical books as a constant in everybody's life.
We gotta show them worst case scenario to keep them alive.
Yes, we gotta show them what happens when you burn books.
I actually wrote down like something that I worked hard on an answer for this, so can I read that out?
Yeah.
Okay. I said, I hope physical books don't become obsolete, but they probably will. Not to get too into it, but as climate change progresses and more people become refugees because of natural disasters from global warming, living space in safe cities is going to get scarcer and scarcer, and it's going to make sense for possessions to take up as little space as possible. Digitizing physical media is going to make a lot of sense to conserve space in like tiny apartments and stuff and shared spaces. And then if we get into like the far future, more fantastical stuff, taking books to space doesn't make any sense if we ever are doing like a lot of space travel. Books are heavy and digital files do the same thing and don't really technically weigh anything. And then there's also like the what if we become like uploaded minds in the far future, you know? If we go to digital completely, all physical media will be obsolete. But I'm also like a big fan of analog media and personal archives, and I like to think that people will hold on to the physical books because they love them, you know, and they're very reliable. The same way people still collect CDs and vinyl in the age of music streaming.
I'm a CD collector.
Me too. I love my CDs.
I'm also a physical book collector because I find buying books and shelving them and reading as two different hobbies for me. So there's the collecting aspect and then there's the reading aspect. There's like 40 unread books on my shelf currently. So
I love to like re-alphabetize my shelves every now and again and like really work on getting them like organized and sorted by author or by genre. Like that's a fun little afternoon activity sometimes.
Such a valid hobby, and it has me scared for when I get a library because I don't know how I'm going to organize my books. Because I prefer color, but I know it's going to be chaotic if I sort it by color. So
I tend to go by author and then like put series together. Like my series will be together and then books by authors will be together. And if I have like random standalones, they go on the standalone shelf. Away from everything else.
I have like a shelf for my science fiction short story collections, and then everything else I sort by author.
I feel like I really like the idea of just having a giant archive of like media and like audio stuff. So I hope that one day we'll have like a centralized archive, even if that's like digital, to preserve all the books and stuff.
I mean, we kind of do right now anyway. With things like Libby, where libraries can actually loan out ebooks now, there is a digital archive for you to request books from libraries all around the world. So
There's also Project Gutenberg, which digitizes older works for which the copyright has expired.
The Internet Archive also has a lot of books.
Yeah, keep things around. Like it.
that's true.
All right. I think moving on. Do you judge a book by its cover? And how much
Absolutely.
does the cover design influence your reading choices?
The prettier, the better.
I'm gonna be the biggest opinionated person on this. As a romance reader, I will never go to a bookstore and pick up a romance book that has a real man on the cover.
Real.
I will absolutely
people,
I will absolutely walk right past those fucking books. I prefer the cartoon the cartoon in quotations covers. Because at least they're discreet. At least people are just like, oh, it's just a silly little romance. They don't know that I'm reading about people railing each other.
Oh my god. I thought it was
So-
like an ew situation when you saw like a photograph of a man on the cover. That's me. That's me with the
That's-
romance.
I
Yeah,
also
absolutely.
get the ick from real people
Yeah.
on covers.
Yeah, 'cause
Regardless
I'll
of the
pull a book
genre,
off a
actually.
shelf and see like washboard abs. I don't want that. Give me something nice to look at. This is not what I want.
Like
It's art. Let it be art.
Real.
like the covers for Haunting and Hunting Adeline, those covers are fantastic. You would never guess what's actually inside those books just by the cover.
I got Haunting Adeline because it was recommended to me. I haven't read it yet, but when I was in the bookstore, I turned to a random page, and Kimi, you might have to censor this in editing. Basically, I had gone to a part where it's like I would walk on glass just for her to suck my again. I'm like, oh my fucking god.
Oh,
Ooh.
that's not even the worst part, May.
Listen,
Let me know when
I
you start reading it because I finished it.
I haven't read it yet. I'm excited to read it. This is going to be my first like step into dark romance, which I've sort of been. I'll talk about that in one of the later questions, but
I have
uh,
so many good dark romance recs if
anyway,
you get into it.
the current question. Generally, if the cover like looks good and appeals to me, generally I'll pick it up and read the back or the jacket cover, like the inside jacket cover. But ultimately, it's the summary that'll convince me to buy the book. So it doesn't really influence me that much. It just sort of, well, I guess it does because it influences me what book to pick up. But I'm not gonna buy a book just because it has a pretty cover, but it has like a lackluster story or something like that. I don't think any of us would. I don't know. I may be wrong, but my favorite book designs are when modern books are illustrated on the outside to look like they're old and decrepit, like or from like the 16th century.
I like that.
Like the gilded edges on like a really nice sturdy hardback or something like that. Love that shit.
I love a sprayed edge. It will
Ooh.
attract me to pick it up every time. I
Yes.
don't care if I've never heard of the author or the series of books. I will pick it up, and if it's got a sprayed edge,
Also-
I will likely buy it if I think the cover and the little blurb sound good.
Also, I've increasingly seen limited edition books in bookstores that have like an entire like landscape painted across the edges of the page. So when you
Yes.
like,
Mhm.
I love that shit. Gilded edges, hell yeah, sprayed edges.
I
I
like
eat that shit up.
I like an avant-garde sprayed edge. I'm not a super big fan of the gilded ones, but if it's like bright red or
Mm.
like bright blue, or like there's a landscape
Ooh.
on it or something, or some kind of art, I like that. I like it when
Mhm.
it's like a bit weird. But like mostly, as someone who reads a lot of secondhand books, I don't get to pick the covers of my books because I just order them online and whatever they've got, they send.
Mhm.
So like I appreciate a beautiful book, but I'm not really a cover person.
I do love me a good cover. I think most of my books, the covers I pick up or I tend to pick up are either heavily stylized with a lot of bright colors, or it's a lot of nature and like floral imagery that attracts it because I'm a sucker for florals. Doesn't care if it's clothes, designs, paintings, you name it, florals, I'm on it.
Mhm.
So, oh, and like pretty fonts. Like I like when
Ooh,
people put
I'm a
effort
sucker for
into
a good font.
I
for
just remembered
font
a book I want to
title.
recommend you.
Real.
Oh my god, thank you.
I will send it to you.
But I really love a
I-
good font.
I'm also a sucker for hardcover books that when you take the dust jacket off of, have an actual cover underneath it, and it's not just a plain
Mm-hmm.
black book.
Yep.
Mhm.
Now,
Yep.
with that said, I'm looking at Rebecca Yaros's publishing company for not giving us some sort of cover underneath the Fourth Wing series dust jackets.
None of them?
None of them. All that
Oh.
there is a title on the spine.
Is
And
it like embossed at least?
they're next to me.
Because I do love like a good
No.
embossed. No,
No.
what's the point?
So
I like
hold
the
on.
I like the
I'll send a
texture of
picture
physical
then.
books, like in all aspects. The pages, the covers, the spines. Like the more texture on a book, the better. You know.
One of the only hardbacks I own has two different covers. The dust jacket is the name of the book. It's called Famous Men Who Never Lived. But then if you take the dust jacket off, the underside, like the inside, the actual hardcover, looks like it's for a book called The Pyronauts, which is a fictional book that exists within Famous Men Who Never Lived. And I really like that touch. I think that's a very fun touch.
Fun.
So this is just flat. Like it's you run your hand over it and the title on the side is
Let
just
me
flat.
look. I was responding to
Aw.
Eve. The cover was pretty, I will admit, and I love me a good historical fiction. We'll get back on that later. It's just printed. That's
It's
foul.
just printed.
That's
It is foul.
What? Ugh, that makes me
All
sad.
of them. However, the Korean edition of the book series is beautiful if you look it up. But you know, I'm not gonna order a book in Korean just because it's got a pretty cover because I'm not gonna be able to read it.
For real.
Fair.
Though I might.
Learn Korean. Learn Korean.
I
and then you
am
can read it.
actively actually learning Korean so that I can watch K-dramas and walk away from my computer from time to time. So
Wow.
I feel like for me, the cover is 100% important because I read mostly nothing but manga. So if the characters are not to my liking, then I probably won't read it.
Did I
Exactly.
just hear
Here
you say
first,
I
folks.
eat? Did
Yeah,
you say
I said I eat. Eat that
I
up,
eat
dude.
manga.
She's numbing on the books in the corner. It's okay. Why
Listen,
we don't take her to the library?
Finish a page, roll it up, scuff it down.
it just means the art style was that good. You know, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand. The art style is
She just wants
everything
to
in
munch on
manga.
those characters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've picked up stuff where the cover looked good, and then I was like, oh, this art style actually isn't the greatest, and had to drop it. So I have been bamboozled before. Okay, let's see. Next question. Do you have a favorite reading spot or ritual?
My bed.
Oh,
Final answer.
Yes,
I don't have a
but-
good seat in my room, so I can't like.
Nice.
Well, maybe outside, like on a hammock would be ideal.
oh my god.
On a
Dude,
porch?
same.
Yeah.
On a horse?
Also,
No, a porch.
Oh.
Yeah, sure. A hammock on a horse. The horses. It's two horses, and they're holding a hammock between them, and that's how I like to read. Galloping around the neighborhood.
nah, galloping down the beach, you gotta be living your best dreams.
The beach is like 4 hours for me. If we make an 8-hour
You-
trip to get
listen.
to the beach.
The horse is going to be really tired by the time you get there.
That's why they get a break at the beach to eat and graze, and I read for 4 hours, and then we truck back.
Okay, guys, wait.
Why
I
are
wanna
we not
paint you
putting
a
the horses
picture.
in a trailer?
You're gonna paint me a picture?
I'm going to paint you a picture, guys. Listen, let's hear this out, right? You are sat cross-legged on your bed with your legs under the covers and your arms free, holding a book in your hands. You have your headphones on, and you have a YouTube video playing through your headphones. That is the perfect ambience for the book you're reading. It makes you feel like you're there. That's my reading ritual. That is my perfect way of reading a book.
That is pretty similar to my bed reading ritual.
Mm-hmm.
But mine is so this depends on which type of book I'm reading. For my Kindle, I will roll myself into my fuzzy blanket like I'm cocooning, and I'll hold my Kindle in one hand, and I'll put on like a rain audio in the background because it's soothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I
I'll
like
lock
my
in.
spaceship sounds 10
Then I'll lock
hours.
in.
Yeah, I lock in like I'm locking in my Valorant character, and I 4 hours later I finished the book.
Beautiful.
Now, if I'm reading a physical book, I prefer to be at my desk because 9 times out of 10 I'll end up annotating it because I love a good reminder the next time I read.
I can't write in a book unless it's already been written. The only time I've written in a book recently or annotated or stuck anything anywhere is I got a secondhand copy of Gut Symmetries by Jeanette Winterson, and somebody had annotated it and like made very like funny comments. Like they just wrote after the prologue, they just wrote "Tosh," as in like this is crap. This is complete crap. And then that one part in the story, the main character is like talking philosophically about who she is and her function in the world. And the person just wrote in the margin, "Says she is a gut?" question mark. I wrote little answers to those annotations when I read it because it didn't feel like I was sullying the book to do that, right? But
Mhm.
yeah, I really don't annotate. I think it's very brave to annotate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just started last year, but when I annotate a book, it's solely a book that I've picked up with the purpose of annotating it in my mind. Like,
Mm.
my special edition books will never be written in. But if it's just a regular edition of the book, then I'm probably going to annotate it at some point.
Mhm.
One of my first annotations was Bride by Ellie Hazelwood, and I put my annotation, the last annotation in that book that I did, in the thing.
You annotated the acknowledgements? That's commitment.
Oh, yeah. At the end of the book, she wrote the list of people she would like to thank, and then she wrote, and I would like not to thank Ticketmaster. And because I know I know exactly why she wrote this, because she's a Taylor Swift fan. And I was like, I know this isn't a part of the story, but big same fuck Ticketmaster.
Gosh.
Real.
Because I too lost the great war of trying to get tickets for the Eras tour 4 times.
Oh my god.
I was trauma
So I
bonded
heard the
over
concert-
Ticketmaster.
Dude,
Mhm.
there's currently a lawsuit against Ticketmaster from the Swifties. So
Oh dang.
Beyonce's fan base might actually join that lawsuit in a bit
Oh my gosh.
because of how it's happening with Beyonce's current tour that's happening. So
Dude, I got locked out of getting tickets for that, by the way. So, I heard agree. They were like, we detected unusual activity on your device, so you will not be getting tickets. I was like, what are you
What?
talking about? I just opened Ticketmaster. First time
and
I opened it in like 4 months.
that's
heartbreaking.
exactly what happened to the Swifties. Is they were logging in and Ticketmaster allowed the bots to buy tickets, and then the bots relisted the tickets for like 3 times the price,
Disappointing.
and they were banning regular people's accounts.
Dang.
I miss like actual verified fan status for things.
Mhm.
Wait, how do you verify fan status?
So back in the day, it linked to your Spotify account and it looked at your like listened hours to
crazy.
that artist.
That's
So
like
that you could get
name 5
tickets.
Taylor songs.
No, for real.
It's like
It went off of like who had the most listen hours, and that's the order it let you into pre-sale.
What? Wait. I have to be a certified fan and spend
Yup.
hundreds of hours on this one person to get tickets? What if I didn't know they had a concert till like a month after they announced
Well,
it?
see,
Like, what
the
the
thing
heck?
was,
Then are you really a
it was for
fan?
pre-sale. So
Oh,
if you didn't
okay.
know about it, then it wouldn't have mattered because it was for
Oh,
pre-sale.
I thought you meant for real sale. Like the
No, general sale
okay.
is always open. Pre-sale used to be verified fan, and that's where all of the Eras Tour tickets disappeared, was in pre-sale.
Fair enough.
Dang.
And then they were listing nosebleed seats for $10,000.
No, thank you.
I'm looking at you, Ticketmaster.
$10,000?
10,000 American
That's like
dollars.
That's
a
like
deposit for a house. Like,
Yeah,
that's
that
like
is a
you could
down payment for a
get-
house.
You could get a cheap car for 10,000.
I could take an international trip for $10,000.
Mhm.
well,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my Ticketmaster rant.
Back
Now you got me on
topic.
Ticketmaster. Look for these tickets, bro. Keep going though. Keep going.
The question was a ritual or reading spot. I'm a gremlin. I just get in my covers, lay down, have my reading on my phone, and just read.
nice.
Mhm.
May, what about you?
Nice.
Generally like reading in bed or on like a big soft material, which can range from bean bags to king-sized beds to like one of those I don't know how to explain it. One of those like armchair pillows with like stuffed animals encircling.
Yes, the reading nest.
Yeah. Yeah, anything cozy, comfy, comfortable that I can also assume one of the 75 bisexual approved sitting positions is a
Facts.
go.
See. So basically, we all like coziness, usually.
Yeah.
I will say, whenever I'm reading a physical book, I can't lay down because one, I'll just drop the book on my face.
R.I.P.
Not skilled enough for that. Two, sometimes when I'm laying down to read, I take a little snooze, and I am not about to roll over on one of my physical books and like bend the cover.
Fair enough. All right. Next question. Do you, DNF, do not finish books, or do you feel obligated to finish every book you start?
I feel
the first
mostly
time-
obligated.
For the first time in my life, I have hit 2 books DNF'd. And I can't explain how bad that actually hurts my soul to say. I'm obligated to read this book all the way through type of person.
I when I was younger, I generally felt obligated to finish a book if I started it, but it was easier when I was younger because I had such a this is gonna sound cringe, but a youthful passion for reading. My passion for reading was not yet tainted by the grueling experience of being a fucking English major, which sounds so cringe and dramatic, but like
No, college kind of
having to
ruins the
read-
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
having to read and annotate books for classes and having to do that multiple times within a semester was like it just killed my love for reading because reading wasn't fun anymore, especially when I didn't get to pick the books. So I would be annotating like a classical novel named McTeague. I can't even remember who it's by, but it takes place in the late 1800s, early 1900s during the Industrial Revolution, and at the start of like the California Gold Rush and all of that stuff. And it's the most boring fucking book I've ever read in my entire life. I have never read a book more boring than the book McTeague. And it's just like a fake biography of this guy, and like it's definitely a good like character study, but they created the most boring person in the fucking world.
Here's this mediocre white man for you to read about.
Yes,
Really?
exactly. Literally. If you ever want to feel the pain of being May in 2016 reading McTeague for her British literature class, yeah, that's a great pick, honestly. If you want to be entertained, I would not recommend it. Anyway, all that to say, I've only DNF'd one book, and it was City of Magic by Magnus Flight, because that book itself has like a weird history behind it. All that, it was just like it had a really good premise, but there was just so much gratuitous sex in it, and I just like couldn't get past it because it just like the sex felt like out of place. Like it didn't feel like it was meant to be there. For like it was there for like shock value almost.
Wait, who did you say the author was?
Magnus Flight. It was the book that I started live tweeting about, and I couldn't get past chapter 10.
Oh, actually, I
think
can't say
remember
anything.
This.
I just like I'm not against sex in books, all right? I read smut. So like I'm not against it. It's just like it's like
the mood
this
wasn't
if this
set.
book was a movie, it would be a dick flick. Like
Den of Vipers.
That's so bad. Oh my god. I didn't think anything could get worse than freaking Psycho Shifters.
Listen.
And it got there, and it went lower. The bar
And
was
then-
in hell.
And then we made it to the point where we hit that knife scene, and I was like, I miss Psycho Shifters. And I never thought that I would say that.
Yeah, it was a sex scene, like straight out of Haunting Adeline, but like infinitely
No.
worse. It was so bad.
It was-
Conceptually it was similar, but execution terrible.
No, like even conceptually, very different. At least in Haunting Adeline, we know for 100% certain that, yeah, he's a stalker, but she's very into this idea, and it's a hereditary thing for her because her great-grandmother was also a fucking freak. However,
The vitriol and the hatred.
Oh my god.
Den of Vipers did it for the shock value. It wasn't
It
for story
was.
progression.
Yeah. I
Alright.
can't. I'm not gonna say it because I know it'll get censored. But I'll bring it up after we're done with this.
It was wild, actually.
Mhm.
Weapons don't go there. Just
Oh,
TLDR,
okay.
weapons don't go there.
I hate that I know. I hate that I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
I think I've
Let
only
me answer
ever
the question.
go for it.
I have DNF'd one book. And it was a non-fiction book. I don't think I'd ever DNF fiction because I always want to know what's going to happen with the story, even if it's hard work. The one book I've DNF'd is The Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And I DNF'd it because it sold itself as like a compilation of folk tales about womanhood, and it was 10 pages of analysis for every 1 page of folk tale, and the analysis was terrible, and it really felt like the author was bending every story to her like really narrow view of what womanhood is, and I really couldn't enjoy it. But it's crazy because people love that book. You know, people put it on their like best of the year lists all the time. They say it's really meaningful to them, and I think it probably is meaningful to people who are just like exploring what their gender means to them. But it was really like it was really it was a really narrow view that was being represented, in my opinion. And also some of the things she was saying about what the stories meant are not what the stories mean in their original culture, and it just pissed me off, so I stopped reading it like 20% of the way in. But that's the only time I've ever done that. I pretty much always finish a book I start otherwise.
I see.
So it's the Family Guy meme where they're like, it insists upon itself.
It
That
insists
was the
upon
book?
itself. That's such a good way of putting it. It does insist upon itself.
We
My
finally got one.
my DNF, or my second DNF that I've ever done, happened in the last week. And I'm so upset about it because I was thrilled by the idea of the book. Like, it sold itself as a Regency era lesbian romance.
Hooray.
And I got into the book, and it was like this really weird mix of third person but first person. Like, she kept referring to herself as Beth. Like, she would say things like, Beth wishes mother would blank blank blank. I made it the prologue and one chapter in, and I had to DNF it. I was like, I cannot read an entire book where the main characters are referring to themselves by name.
But it was in first person, but they were just talking about themselves in the third person?
Yeah, like,
Oh, that's weird.
constantly. And I'm really upset because I was really excited for the idea of lesbian lovers. But
I kind of want to
no.
read it just to like hear that, you know, and see what. see how
I
it
read
reads.
a paragraph of it to Chesh the other day.
Yeah, it was like annoying to read after a while because of the talking in third person about yourself.
I see.
I would kind of ask the author if I ever met them, like, hey, what was the choice for like the writing style for? Because I don't
To do
know
that.
if they've written like other books in this writing style or if they picked this book to try this writing style. So it may just be them.
Strange. I was looking forward to it for my friends to lovers read for our romance challenge, but
It's unfortunate.
got me there. Got me there with my first DNF of the year. So yay!
I feel like I DNF, not like a lot, but like a handful of times for specifically the art style. And I think sometimes it's mistranslated, and that gets me, and I'm like, this doesn't sound right. Like, this does not flow right. So that might not be on the mangaka's like fault. It's just translation does not work out.
Yeah.
But I do have this thing where like I will read something and then come back to it years later. Like, I won't finish it, and then years later I will just finish it all at once.
But
Like a
like, how do
series.
you remember what was happening? I guess it's like a
Uh,
TV show actually that picks up with another season. You kind of don't have to.
Well, usually I'll just reread it from the beginning.
Oh, I see.
But like, I'll remember it. Like, I'll remember the storyline and be like, oh yeah, I just need to finish this because For manga, it takes years for it to finish. So if I like really enjoyed it, but it was still continuing, then I'll just wait it out.
Mm,
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
I usually don't involve myself with a series until it's complete because I don't like waiting for the end of the story.
Mhm.
Because unfortunately, I'm a book a day reader most of the time. So I will read a series, first book to end of series, pretty quickly. And
Yeah.
I am experiencing for the first time in my life reading a series that isn't completely released yet.
Mm.
And I'm realizing that I hate it because I'm forming so many opinions about what I want to happen. And I have to wait until like 2027 for the next book.
Yeah, I hate the
Mhm.
feeling at the end of a book in an updating series. You reach the end and you're like, well, now what do I do? Like, what do I do? Like,
For
I don't know
real.
what's happening to these people.
Yeah, I try
I
to
don't like that unfinished feeling.
I try to search for things that are complete for the most part. Sometimes I'll give in to something that's still ongoing, but for the most part, I just look for completed work.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
wish it-
I want to read the A Song of Ice and Fire series, but I don't think I'm going to do it until The Winds of Winter's out. Which might not be for years yet because George R. R. Martin is taking his time.
I wish that I would have waited a couple more years to pick up the Empyrean series. I'm gonna be so real. Because then I could have just read it front to end.
Oh, but then you'd miss out
In a
on all the
week.
Reddit theories in the meantime.
I see I don't read other people's theories.
It's
Ah.
really interesting. I will say it's
I
seeing what
can't
people come up with is so interesting. And then
I
you get the
like
occasional Bodhi Mpreg fic as well, apparently, like I saw the other day.
Oh my god.
so
Don't remind me.
while I say I don't read other people's theories, like I don't search them out, right? But like sometimes they'll pop up on my For You page and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is pretty on par with my theory for this thing. I will, however, when I'm in a slump and really need just a hit of, the fourth wing characters, I will go on AO3 and read some fanfic.
Hit is crazy.
It's a hit.
So my problem is one, if I ever get amnesia, fourth wing will be one of the first things that I reread to experience for the first time again.
Mm.
Because it gave me a high that I've not felt for a really long time in a book series, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think the first time I ever felt that was probably when I read Harry Potter for the first time in like the fourth grade. I was like,
I-
this is fantastic literature.
I
It's
know what you
not,
mean.
but like, it's just that high of it feels really cool in the moment, you know?
Like I don't think Fourth Wing is that good. Like don't come at me. I don't think it's that good, but I found it so entertaining and fun. I was in my review I compared it to when I read Twilight for the first time when I was a teenager. Like there
That
was
too.
it was like had me kicking my feet and giggling. And it's a straight romance, which doesn't usually do that for me. Like I don't care about that, but like I was very invested and I loved the dragons and I loved finding out about the world.
Yeah.
Like I really it was so entertaining, but like I don't view it as like high literature, but it was it was really fun.
Well, no.
Yeah.
See, and I don't
good.
think I don't read books for the literature aspect. I read books because they're fun.
Real.
Like if something's too wordy, I'll just put it down and go back to it when that's what I'm in the mood for. I enjoy something that gives me excitement that makes me want to keep knowing what happens to the people in the story.
Mhm.
I like stuff that like expands my worldview. Like that's why I like speculative fiction is because it poses questions. Like what if a world was like this? Or what if gender didn't exist? Or what if instead of like a society evolved in which marriages consisted of 4 people? And like that's and I'm literally listing off Ursula K. Le Guin short story concepts right now
Oh my
because she's my favorite
god.
example of that.
I was about to be like, yo, that reminds me of Utopia by Ursula Le Guin.
Yep. I really like that, and I don't find that romantasy or much fantasy really does that because it's kind of for me it's kind of rehashing the same story in different ways. Which I don't mind and I do find to be really fun. Like I really like that. But I think I've gotten really into like the science fiction and speculative fiction groove where I really like to be challenged. and I like artfulness in the writing as well, which you don't really get, especially with the dialogue in things like the Empyrean series or in like Akatar. But like I'm not really criticizing them for that, because that's not what they're trying to be. They're not trying to be that, and I think they have their place, you know?
I'm sorry, but I can't get the image of like Becca in a hospital bed. She just had amnesia, and we're like, get her fourth wing.
No,
At least we
because
know.
it's the way that I told my husband the other day. I was like, listen, if something ever happens, I want you to hand me my favorite books so that I can experience them for the first time again. Like, that is my one request, that if I ever lose my memory, like, as soon as, like, you've instilled that, you know, I have a son and you are my husband, I want you to put my favorite books into my hands and let me read them again.
Do you watch Severance, Becca?
Yeah, I watch
Yeah,
with this
you
crew.
should get severed and then send.
No, for real.
Wait,
Somebody.
pause.
This is such a good idea.
Wait, there's a lot of implications with that outside of just
No.
reading your book again. Hold on.
Wait, can we get somebody on this? I want somebody to make a
God.
severed library so that you can go in and reread your favorite books for the first time again.
Because you wouldn't remember it when you left the library,
Right.
but you'd have the good feeling.
Oh my
you
god.
know?
Yeah.
We bring in the idea of an archived library with like movies and books, and you're
Yes.
severed.
And then you're gonna
That's what I
finish reading
need.
them and be like, I want to be severed again. And then the sever infinite chain of trying to reread your books again for the first time, and
Hey,
you're
I would
severed
do
like
it.
9
would
times
do
Well,
over.
no. So here's the thing, like, maybe in this severed chip for this library, they have like an erase button for what you did while you were down there. So you can just do it repeatedly and get that high feeling of reading your favorite thing again.
My gosh.
I guess that could work. I guess that could
Getting a-
work.
You're getting a
We're
hit,
talking like
remember?
Severance exists in the real world, you know?
This is the speculative fiction you wanted,
Hail
Eve.
here.
We're right here.
Alright, let's move on. How do you feel about rereading books? Is it worth the time?
I love a good reread.
My take on this is that there is no better recommendation than a recommendation from your own past self.
Real.
So true.
So I will
Well-
reread it. As soon as I've forgotten a book, I will reread it because I want to relive that story. And I forget things easily because I've got a terrible
Same.
memory. So it's one of the blessings of that.
I have the opposite problem. So the way my memory works is like words of association. So every time I tried this with the Harry Potter series. I went to go reread them, and as soon as I read like the first 2 pages of the first book, I was like, "Fuck! Now I know what happens in the rest of the book. Why read it?
Yeah.
Why read it again? I already know."
Mhm.
When I reread, it's usually for like an annotation, right? Because I already know what happens. I know what I felt at this point in the book, so it makes me more confident in marking the book, you know? But-
I have like pretty bad memory, I'm not gonna lie. So like for when it comes to media, I'll remember key points. But if you give me like 3 years, I'll forget mostly everything except for the key points. So I can always reread and rewatch stuff.
And I think there's rewatching as well. I don't know. I think it's just like, if I know I liked something, why would I deprive myself of that again?
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Go
I
ahead.
experienced the weirdest bit of, hey, I've seen this before last night in a K-drama's second season that was actually a J-drama. So they did the same exact plot line that they did in the K-drama, gave the show the same name, but did it in Japanese and set it in Japan.
Whoa.
And I was watching it and I was like, wow, this is exactly what happened in the K-drama. This is crazy. Like, I watched the entire season and I went, that is the exact same thing, but in Japanese. That's crazy.
That's fun though. I think that's fun in a way.
It was entirely different characters, but exactly the same plot line. Except for they like changed up like the jobs that the main characters had.
Mhm.
I like when they do that with like Shakespeare, when they readapt Shakespeare in a bunch of different ways. And the same stories get retold, but with like different styles of characterization and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm currently reading a 1920s Shanghai Romeo and Juliet retelling, so
Mm.
Interesting.
nice.
I'll let you know how that goes.
Let's see. I'm gonna bundle up these two questions together. What genre do you love, and what genre do you avoid, and why?
I
Wait, let me do it. I haven't done it.
Okay,
I don't think I
you
did the last
go.
question, actually. I don't think I did the last question. But it's okay, we'll move past it. So I dropped reading probably from 2017 to like 2022, right? Because I think that was like the end of high school, college, right? So I was too busy reading other things that were for my major rather than for my pleasure. So, and then after that, like by the time I got out, I basically tried to revisit books, and I was like, wow, I don't fall under. I mean, age wise, yes, I fall under young adult, but like reading preference wise, I've essentially like lost the urge to do any young adult series ever. I just don't like the writing styles that are
Honestly,
typical for YA.
yeah, same. I used to love YA because like back in like high school and up to like up through college and even up until like more recently once I started getting back into reading. I just like Chesh, I don't like the writing style anymore, and it's not that like I've grown out of them, it's just my tastes and my preferences for reading have changed
Hmm.
thanks to my experiences in the world or whatever. Um
Yeah.
but that's not like I don't like avoid that genre like the plague because there can be some good YA books out there. Um I think that like tickle my fancy or whatever. And I'm waiting. I'm just gonna do a little pause and remind us all to breathe. In that uh my least favorite genre is not an attack on all readers of this genre.
The
Okay.
But
attack preface.
I generally avoid romance
How
books.
dare you? No, I'm kidding.
Nah, it's okay. I think 3 of 5 of us
Nah, it's just an
generally
attack
don't
on me.
enjoy romance
Sorry,
books that
Becca.
much. Like I don't mind romance as a secondary plot line, but
Yeah,
I'm into
yeah.
books for like the world building aspect and the funness of exploring because I guess this just transcends like both shows I watch and games I play and books I read, but I like uncovering the world. Like that's such a fun aspect of me locking
Mm.
into the book is seeing what the world has to offer that's new and fresh and not like the real world. Um so I fantasy is still a high genre for me. Love me a good fantasy. Yes, there are rehashes, but I don't care because they're great. Like
Mhm.
don't fix it if
I
it isn't broken. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So
Mhm.
I specifically love high fantasy. Lord of
I
the
have to find
Rings,
more.
like that classic medieval fantasy
Dragons and Kingdoms and
shit.
Quests and
That's why
stuff
Fire the
like
Yes,
Orange
that. Yeah.
Tree, I
the
reread that 3
Belgariad
separate
series.
times. So good.
That's my favorite genre. It's what I grew up with basically, in terms of what I read the most. And so that's like that I'll always love it.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
But
think
then, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think speculative fiction is my favorite genre because you get fantasy and sci-fi in it.
Ooh
And I
yeah.
like both. I especially like it when they come together and combine in fun ways. But yeah, I just like I'm in speculative fiction because I like the what if questions and I like being shown the world in a different way to how I typically look at it.
Hmm.
Um, I don't really avoid any particular genre. I've been making forays into um romance for this challenge this month, and I haven't really liked going outside my speculative fiction bubble. There's been a couple of hits, but like I think I kind of have been picking bad books though. I hate to say it. I think I don't like the writing styles of the authors I've been picking because I've been looking for prompt matching books rather than
Hmm.
looking for books that I would enjoy. And that's my mistake, and I want to not do that anymore. But yeah, like the high fantasy stuff as well. I'm with you. I think that's so fun. I
Hmm.
haven't read I read The Hobbit when I was a kid. I haven't read Lord of the Rings yet. But I'm planning on rereading both this year because I need a bit of that. I need a bit of that high
Ooh.
fantasy magical world.
I need to try
Yeah.
speculative fiction because I feel like that would be a fun concept for me. If How We Lose the Time War was speculative fiction, then I want more of that, like on my desk. You know what I mean? So that's such a good book.
That is a great book. I actually can't think of anything that matches it in terms of tone at the moment, but I can make you some very high quality speculative fiction recommendations if you want.
Thank you. I will take it. And then I guess the other genre that I've fallen into is like historical fiction. But I think that's more because I enjoy reading a book that also prompts me to like research while I'm reading a book. Because the one historical fiction book that I got into immediately after trying to get back into reading is Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeline Thien. And it's about it takes place in China, like right before the Tiananmen Square massacre, and it basically tells the story of several generations of family as they're like navigating China, leading up to the events of that. And Chinese history is not something that's in depthly taught in school, just because it's just a lot of history to cover. But it gave me plenty of opportunity while I was reading to like research prominent historical figures in China and traditional customs, government practices, propaganda, all that kind of stuff. And I was on Wikipedia for a good bit in the middle of the book that I would read about a historical figure and then click into their family details and go through like a Wikipedia rabbit hole where I would be looking up 10 different people and these like pieces of literature that were banned during the Red Scare and all types of stuff. It was such a fun experience. And so I'm hoping more historical fiction will pique my interest.
Nice. I haven't read any like pure historical fiction since I was a teenager, but I read like there was a series of books that were put out that were like styled as the diaries of like famous people in history, like Queen Victoria. And I really, really liked those because I liked getting a better understanding of the time period.
Yeah, especially when it's told through other people's like eyes and you get to experience it through other people. I think that's probably the best part.
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna yap about my favorite.
Right.
I feel like, one, romance gets such a bad rap because a lot of people's like introduction to romance is like some off-kilter recommendation that they're given that is just full of sex that isn't necessary for the plot. And there's so many good romance books that don't have any sex in them whatsoever, that have a great storyline, and that also have world building in them. But nobody ever finds them because they read one that's recommended by like TikTok. And I don't recommend getting your recommendations from TikTok for the first time you read a book in a new genre. Bad idea. But there's so many good books where you just get to watch people fall in love. And I love the feeling of falling in love. And I feel like every time that I get to read from a new person's perspective, I get to watch them fall in love. And it makes me feel the feeling of falling in love because I'm an empathetic reader. And it's like watching, it's like, one, whenever I read, I see movies play out in front of me. And it puts me in the main character's shoes. So it's like falling in love all over again. And it's a nice, cozy feeling. But that said, I don't just read romance. I can't have that narrative out there. I just love love. I do read more than romance. I read thrillers. I read horror. I read dark romance, but, you know, still romance. The one genre that I probably hate the most is nonfiction. I can't do it.
Really?
I can't leisurely sit down to read nonfiction. I'm not a big fan of like overdrawn world building. Like, yeah, world building's cool. But I have to be in the mood for like high fantasy. And sometimes I just can't get into like 10 plus pages at the beginning of a book setting up the entirety of the world without there being like dialogue of some sort between characters that is like giving me reason why I'm being told these things right now. You know?
See, that's like clunky world building though. The best world building is when it's really integrated into the plot. You learn as you go. Like
yes.
See, Unfortunately
We're
for
expressing
me,
opposite opinions about books today. It's really interesting.
unfortunately for me, I feel like 9 times out of 10, whenever I pick up a new high fantasy book, right, it feels that way. Like, there may be dialogue happening, but it's so, like, out of context of what I'm being told in the other parts of the text that it just doesn't interest me. Like, I've picked up Pyre of an Orange Tree like 17 times, and I fall asleep every time I start trying to pick it back up.
Damn, it's okay. I still love it. You can have your opinion. I'll cry in the corner while I read it for the 4th time at some point in this year.
No. I have tried to pick it up. I think the problem is that I bought the ebook version of the book. I'm gonna have to buy the physical version so that I force myself to read it
The
eventually.
physical version is huge.
I know.
It's clunky
It is.
and chunky.
Which is
chunky.
exactly why I bought the ebook, but I can't trust myself to lay in my bed with my Kindle and not fall asleep while trying to get through it.
Oh,
Because
dear.
I don't know, it feels like it's dragging on at the very beginning and there's like nothing like happening. I'm just following this person to this other person.
Yeah, well, the pacing at the beginning of the book, I will admit, is definitely like not fantastic. But I think after the first couple of chapters, it picks up because I guess the bulk of it is establishing the different POVs of characters, which requires you learn about the various backstory for every region because they're spaced out in different regions in the same continent, which doesn't help. But it's good, I swear. It's okay if you don't like it, but it's good. I swear. I would not
believe I
reread
will
Trash 3
eventually
times
give
in a
it.
row, guys.
I will eventually give it a go.
Don't force
But I'm-
yourself. If it's not
No.
your cup of tea, it's okay.
The problem is I know that the main part of the story would probably be my cup of tea. I love different POV stories. I,
Mhm.
however, am struggling with this world building of slowly following this person, which feels like her long walk down the beach. I'm gonna be so real.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, her POV is not the strongest in the book by and large, but
And it's how the book starts out too. So I'm just walking down the beach.
yeah.
It's on my shelf to read this year, and I haven't got to it yet. But I'm excited, and I think
Let me know when you do.
I think I like world building enough that like I will get through that, hopefully with limited difficulty.
I've read enough scathing reviews on Goodreads that I've like swallowed down the fact that people can have different opinions. There's nothing worse than loving a book and then going online and people being like, "This was garbage," and I'm like, "What do you
Real.
mean?
Literally,
Like, just give it a chance." And then I have to be like,
For
"Let's
real,
control
yeah.
yourself. Like, this is not you. People are allowed to be vocal about their opinions. You
when
just
we
have to
finished-
digest and move on."
when we finished This Is How You Lose the Time War the other day, and then like
Uh-huh.
all the reviews were like 3.5 reviews, and we were
No,
both
don't
like
tell me.
instant 5-star. I was like, how is this happening?
I do love me a good divisive book though, when it's
Yeah.
either 5 stars or it's like 2.5 stars. I'm like, dang, now I gotta read this book because I have to have an opinion on it. I can't just listen to all of you guys.
I will say I have a fairly strong opinion that reviews like being like this is this amount of stars out of this amount of stars is specifically meant for like Goodreads or Storygraph or any other app that you're using to like rate or track your books.
Mm-hmm.
Do not take that opinion into an author's comment section and be like, your book was absolute dog shit.
That's bad manners.
Yeah, don't ever do that.
I do realize that Chesh and I kind of shit on Jasmine Mass a lot whenever we did that book review, but it was playful shitting. We enjoyed the read of the book. It wasn't actual like, man, you're fucking terrible, get good.
Yeah, I'll never harass somebody over the work that they do so much as just comment on it and move on. That's a respectful thing to do.
It was entertaining at least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
While it wasn't for us, other people loved it.
I gotta stop interrupting you guys, but speaking of ratings, we had a conversation a while ago where it was like, if a book has like a 4.9 on like a review site, I don't trust that book. I don't want to read it. That's too high. But if it has like a 3.9 or like a 3.8 or a 4 or a 3.7, like it's that much more intriguing, especially when you look at the reviews and some people are rating it 2 and some people are rating it 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I trust that mix of reviews way more than I trust a bunch of high reviews because it makes me think that the people who are reading it have given like thoughtful reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say if I'm on Goodreads and I'm looking at a book, I don't really like regard the main overall like average review, but I'll always like go to the reviews and filter it by like 3-star, and then I'll be like, all right, what do the 3 stars have to tell me? Because it's middle of the road, so obviously it was good enough to keep your attention, but you also had enough critique to come on here and review it and also rate it 3-star. So like, what do you have to say? And 9 times out of 10, they give very cohesive reviews, and then I take that with me when I go review the book.
I'll also say my reviews are based solely on my vibes when I finish the book. Like, how the book made me feel is the only way that I rate the book. So, like, if a book gets 5 stars from me, it had me engaged the entire time, and I am in love with this book and will read something next that this author puts out, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I rate something at a 1 or a 2, just know that a normal person probably would have DNF'd that. And that's me being generous with my rating.
So true.
I have a spreadsheet. Like I have a 7-category spreadsheet that I use to make sure my ratings are like internally consistent, because I'm so bad at saying like I would just rate everything like 4 or 5 stars if I didn't. Because when I finish a book, I'm like, yeah, that was great. I like ride the high of finishing a book, and I do weight my enjoyment of the book more heavily than I weight any of the other categories. It's worth like 3 times the amount of points in my system. But my system I use has me look at like the atmosphere and the characters. It's a modified version of the core pile rating system that a lot of people use. And that's really helped me, but it does make me feel very silly sometimes because of the amount of work I put in to like rating a book that I didn't like. It's a lot, like, and it'll come out and I'll feel, but it also takes a lot of work to get a low review from me because of that system, because maybe the plot was awful but the characters were good, you know, and there's always some little extra points. But I think the lowest I've ever rated is 2 stars based on that system.
I will say I rated something 1.25 stars this year. So
Oh,
that was Den of Vipers.
It was Den of Vipers.
It's only been a month and 18 days. We've already got a 1-star review.
Dude,
yeah.
if I could wipe it from my mind, I might. I might. Like, the only thing keeping me back is the review, like, commentary that me and Becca shared, and that's probably it.
If I could hit myself with a brick precisionally and take out the tiny chunk of my brain that now stores that book,
Oh my god.
I would do it.
An evil version of the Severance we were talking about earlier, where
Right,
you
exactly.
sever it yourself and then you have your innie read the books that you don't want to finish.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, while we're here, Jasmine Mass, I am so sorry. I take back what I said about you in that book club review like forever ago. You're a very great author. Please keep pursuing your passions.
Actually, while we're at it, can you go maybe give K.A. Knight a little bit of help writing men?
Oh my god.
I was talking with Becca about what would happen if the 2 authors got together and wrote a book. Like, I think that might fix everything.
It might have actually fixed it. Like, it might have flushed it out. We had a badass female character in Den of Vipers. I actually liked the female main character. And then, honestly, at least the male characters in the Psycho Shifter series were consistent in their behavior.
Mm-hmm. And they had plot. There's a real plot that actually meant something.
Gosh.
Yep. I'll keep my mouth shut on it. I'll yap forever. This stupid book.
Well, I should say really quick for my answer. I know Becca doesn't want this title, but I read exclusively romance. I love it.
Look, I love.
Kimi is definitely someone who loves love.
Dude, I love love.
I also love it. I love kicking my feet and giggling and enjoying the feeling of the main characters falling in love. It's one of my favorite things. I even love when my friends fall in love. Like, it makes me giddy for them.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also love a good thriller that keeps me on the edge of my seat. I'm like, what's next? Who's dying next?
I think when it comes to other forms of media, like movies and TV shows, like, I'm way more diverse. But when it comes to books or manga specifically, I'm like, I just want romance. I just want to see them fall in love. I just want them to have the best happy ending.
I hate to say it, but in like digital media, like movies and stuff, I prefer romance. I love a good horror movie occasionally, right? But like my K-drama, always romance. I love a good romantic K-drama. I love a good romantic comedy. If there's romance in it, I'm there.
See, when it comes to movies specifically, I love horror. I love getting scared.
I feel like maybe part of that is I spent so much of like my early teens, like my 13 to 14s, watching like exclusively horror. So
Mhm.
I've watched a lot, and not a lot actually freaks me out anymore. And if it
Oh.
freaks me out, it contains children, and I'm not watching it. So
I don't really get freaked out anymore. I just like, I don't know, I like the weird plots. I like how weird it gets sometimes in horror movies. But when it comes to books, I just like being giddy and kicking my feet.
I do love a good pining. I was talking with Kimi earlier today. The favorite part of romance is the entire pining portion, which is why I like it as secondary, because I also get to have the pining for the bulk of the book, but then I also get to focus on everything else in the book, and then it all comes together at the end, and the book's over.
Mm-hmm.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, I will say, even though I love romance, there's a lot of romance that I read that pisses me off.
Wow.
Literally, Becca and Chesh will be in VC, and I'm like reading. I'm like, guys, I hate this. Why am I reading this?
No, because there's been times that I've been in the middle of a romance series and I'll hit like the third act breakup, and I'm like, why the fuck are we just now miscommunicating? Why?
Yeah.
What?
And then don't even get me started with like rival characters, like, or when there's like multiple trying to go for the girl or multiple
Kimi reading her freaking long read romance, and they have 3 love interests, and she's still dating her man. I'm like, why do we have 2 other people vying for her attention? She already claimed one.
Literally.
Leave her alone.
Okay.
Because
I'm not gonna
unfortunately, some men don't get the idea.
Let throuples
When you're
exist.
taken. Well, also, for some reason, when you're a taken woman, it makes you more appealing to some men. So,
Mm.
Yeah. Weird.
like, married women get hit on more than single women. So, it's weird.
Mhm.
Also, there needs to be more polyamorous, like manga and books in general. I feel like there's not
Can we
I
also
just read
request
a-
really good lesbian romances?
real. They're not.
Yeah.
Like in the manga sphere, there are not a lot of good Yuri.
Run on an
It's-
empty man. I'm
It's
crying,
always
bro.
toxic, and I'm like, why? Like when it comes to yaoi or like BL boys love, like they're great. They're well written, characters immaculate. But then when you get girls love, it's like it's toxic. They're like jealous of each other the whole time.
Japan cannot handle lesbians, unfortunately.
It's so sad.
So disappointing.
It is disappointing. I just read a book that's it was sold itself as sci-fi, but it wasn't really sci-fi. It was literally about polyamory. It was about like queer polyamory, on like a backdrop of like a very vague sci-fi plot, which was kind of disappointing. But there needs to be, and this is I'm not insulting the book I read. I didn't enjoy it that much. I gave it 3 stars, but it did make me go, we need some polyamory that's like integrated into the plots of books and like is the way that world works, rather than like, I just think that we need better integrated polyamory representation rather than having books where polyamory is the point of the whole story, because it's a very narrow path to take, where and like I put in my review of this book I just read, it just felt like polyamory 101 the whole time. It felt like I was being taught about polyamory rather than having a polyamorous relationship in the story,
Just
know?
like letting it be rather than explaining it.
And also, like, it's a great solution to multiple love interests, for example, especially when everybody's into each other, you know? Like, there's opportunities for like some really fun stuff to happen, and people just don't ever take that route, and I think more people should.
They're scared.
They are scared.
They shouldn't be.
Note taken.
All right.
I say.
Let's see.
I will say,
Hmm.
I have one more thing to add. I just had a flashback of reading my favorite lesbian romance book that I have read, in the past like 10 years,
What was it?
and it was called Honey Girl.
The way I was about to ask the same question. It's really bad.
It's called Honey Girl, and it
Thank you.
was fantastic. 10 out of 10. Do recommend. If you want a lesbian romance story.
By Morgan
And
Rogers.
romance, yes.
Okay.
The girl's a lady of color.
I know, she's so pretty on the cover.
She is stunning. But I think that it was done really well. And I'm chasing that high. Yes.
Mhm.
I bought
my God,
I bought the
Love
ebook for this.
lesbians.
She has a PhD in astronomy. She's a woman in
Yes.
STEM. This is
Oh
for
my
me,
gosh.
guys. This
Yeah,
is
and she's
targeted at
28 as
me.
well. She's not
Yeah,
even
she's
like
28. Yeah, she's not.
21 or a
She's 21.
teenager.
I will say that the plot of this book starts out, she wakes up in Vegas with a woman in her bed and a ring around her finger. So
Oh my god.
Oh.
she goes to Vegas, gets drunk with her friends, runs off with the girl she met in the bar, and they get married. And then the story progresses. So it's about her finishing her PhD program and her trying to figure out where she is in life and what she wants to do with her degree and stuff. So, really good read. I'm chasing that high still.
It looks good. I'm reading the blurb for it right now. It does look good.
I loved it.
On my
So if
TBR,
any of you
thank
find something like it, fucking key me in, because
Dude,
I've been
half
chasing that
my
feeling.
lesbian romances that I have queued up for this challenge are like horror thriller. So we'll see how it goes. Dude, they really love exploring horror thriller. I have 2 that are vampires, so that's great.
That's the Carmilla influence, I swear. It was written in the
Mhm.
1700s and it's this weird like it's the first like it came before Dracula, right? And it's this weird like slightly horny energy. But it's like from the fucking Victorian perspective or whatever whoever it was in the 1700s. Where it's like really restrained.
Mhm.
But
See,
yeah,
but that's what I
it's got really
crave, the
interesting, but it's like a little
tension,
bit
the
scary.
fighting.
It's like
Mhm.
Caroline Polachek she says this thing about some songs. She calls them scorny, which is scared but horny.
Oh my
And
god.
I think Carmilla is like the perfect example of that energy because like objectively nothing weird is happening, but also like the way it talks about like desire and horror at the same time. It's very like
Yes.
ooh.
I do have one that I think is
I
about cannibalism. So we'll get,
Oh.
we're exploring it's a fun time. It's only
I will be
200
watching your
pages.
story graph.
Thank you. It's next on my list once I get through Iron Flame. I will let you know how that goes. Anyone else who cares?
I will also say, for YA recommendations for lesbian romance or queer romance, because there's other stuff going on in there.
I saw that book.
This
Okay.
book is really good,
We Deserve Monuments by Jazz Hammonds, for anyone wondering.
but also it is about a young black girl in the South, like moving to the South. So she meets her first like interactions with like racism and stuff. So
Not racism.
could be a hard read, but she's 17 and she's going through a lot.
Alright. I'm move these questions around a little bit and put how has your taste in books changed over the years? And I will just be first and say it really hasn't changed. It's
I was
just
gonna say the same thing.
it just changed to the way that I tolerate things. I feel like as a teen I tolerated a lot of more like miscommunication. And I was like, oh, it's just, they can't, figure it out. And then I'm like, now as an adult, I'm like, why don't y'all just talk to each other?
Mhm.
For real.
Just have a conversation, please.
That's why I got out of YA, because they love these tropes. I'm like, guys, I don't
Well,
have time for this. I'm here for a good
I-
time, not a long time. Like we gotta get it moving. I don't have time for all these miscommunication, third love interest, none of that.
I'm gonna defend the YA genre with miscommunication. I feel like it is a really common thing for actual people who are in their early 20s and in their teens to accidentally miscommunicate or mishear or misrepresent something. So that's why it's so common in YA books, is because that's something that young people tend to actually go through. So it's represented.
Yeah. No, I get that part. It's like one book or one manga series comes to mind where they kept miscommunicating. Like throughout the whole book, they were always like misstepping. And I'm like, you guys, by the third volume, y'all should have learned how to talk to each other.
I don't remember which book I put down for miscommunication in the thing, but give me a second. I'll tell you what it was about it that made me mad as soon as I remember which book I did, because I read two. I don't remember which one I put on.
Like, I know it's
for it.
very realistic that, two people talking, of course there's going to be like, oh, I didn't mean it this way, but you took it this way. But when it repeatedly happens, then I'm like, okay, all right, there's an issue we need to get over.
The Unhoneymooners was a miscommunication trope that I actually enjoyed.
Mm.
Because the miscommunication was that they hated each other, and they found out pretty quickly into the book that they in fact did not hate each other, and that they were allowing their perspectives from the outside to sway what they thought the other person felt about them.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is cheating at the end of the book, and it's not the main couple that gets outed for it, but I was ready to fist fight at the end of this book a character in a book, and I've not felt that way in a hot minute.
Oh my gosh.
I've never wanted to punch a man so much, and he was a fictional man.
Dude, there was one book that I read that I'm like, as a teen, I probably would have liked it. But there was like this one girl character that was just oblivious, and through the whole series, the whole series, she was oblivious to the fact that she liked this guy, and every time she was like, maybe I do like him. Maybe. I don't know what it means to like. And I'm like, dude, we've been here for 5 volumes, and you still don't know that you like this guy.
I think my like benchmark for how my taste has changed is not necessarily the books I read, but the way I read books. Because like I reread books that I liked when I was like 12, 13, 14 every now and again because they're like comforting, right? And a huge example of this is Twilight. When I first read Twilight, I wanted to be Bella. Like I was so into it. I ate it up. I had the hots for Edward. Like, my newly out lesbian self still had the hots for Edward. It's great. And like I felt her heartbreak in New Moon, and I felt her joy in Breaking Dawn when she got turned, and I was really with her in it, and I really like related to Bella. But now when I read it, I'm like, this is fucking ridiculous. Every single time I read it, I like have a little giggle to myself because there's some stupid shit happens in these books, and I love that my young self was so into it.
Mhm.
I think that's great, but it's interesting to look at it now and appreciate it in a new way. I'm mostly reading it for nostalgia's sake.
Mhm.
But there are other books that have really stood the test of time. Like there's this one series called The Last Dragon Chronicles, and I've always said that this book's strength is that there's like 7 books, and the first book is like really good for like 11-year-olds, and then the last book is like I would read it now and it would feel like a book written for adults, but it doesn't have like any adult. It doesn't have adult themes beyond like violence,
Mhm.
But it goes from this like magical realism kind of thing to like this multiverse spanning high fantasy in some worlds and contemporary like magical realism in others. And it grew with me as I grew up. Like the books were being released as I grew up, and it stands really strong even now. Like I enjoy all of them in the series, even though they do feel like they're written for younger people at the beginning. Um, but the way I read it now is a little bit different because um a lot of it is playing through memory. Like a lot of it is me remembering how I reacted to it before. But I haven't really, my taste hasn't really changed. I just read books in a different way now, I think.
Mhm. May Trash.
Wait, did I
Yeah,
answer?
I guess y'all
I think
answered
you can catch.
earlier.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, I just I mean, I still like a lot of the same core elements that I liked in my youth. I just like it in a different way now. I definitely prefer darker, grittier stories, lots of angst and drama, and that sort of thing, but not like petty drama, not like modern drama, like fantasy drama, like life or death drama. That's the kind of drama I like. Not like OMG, Tanya said this about me, and now I can't show my face at school anymore. Like, that's the kind of drama I would have liked when I was in school and I was in that situation. But now I'm tending to read books where the protagonist is like around my age, where she's an older adult, she's already got a life, she's not like, I don't know. I also just prefer to read books with female protagonists because I am indeed a female. That sounded weird to say.
You could say you're a female
But
protagonist in your own life.
yeah, I am a female protagonist in my own life. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You're good.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you.
I guess I'll reiterate my answer. I don't know if I even answered the question or if I kind of like open the door for everybody else to answer their questions. But since I have taken such a break from reading, I am basically at the stage where I am exploring every genre that is fiction. Like everything's on the table. I'll like the ones I like, and I will not like the ones I don't like, and we just go from there. It's been a good ride. I've done contemporary, I've done analytical, I've done speculative, went back into high fantasy, casual fantasy, horror, thriller. I didn't used to do those like when I was younger, so that's been fun. I'm just open to everything.
I didn't used to read romance. Romance is a pretty new development in my reading taste. But when you read everything else that you've wanted to read, you have to branch out at some point until new books are written.
What did you used to read?
I have been a really big reader since I was like in the first grade.
Mhm.
So I hit like chapter books and I think about second grade. And I used to read like regular, like, little kid fantasy chapter books. Magic's Treehouse was a really big thing that I really enjoyed. Um, but whenever I got to like the 7th, 8th grade and I had read through most of my grade school library, I started reading horror
Mhm.
because what else is there to read? And then I branched into more thrillers. And then whenever I hit high school, I stopped reading as much because then, we were assigned books to read. And unfortunately, for some reason, my English teacher really preferred to like use teenage romance to encourage us to read. So she'd use books like Fault in Our Stars, and there was another one that I had on the top of my head, but I forget the title of it. But she used to use those as like encouragements to read, and like she would make curriculum with them.
I see.
So I kind of avoided it because it was pushed, on me.
Mhm.
But as
Gotta
an
be
adult, I eat that shit up.
rebellious.
But I also still love thrillers. So
Mhm. Well, all right. Well, speaking of Faults in Our Stars, how do y'all feel about adaptations of books into movies or TV shows?
I think that some of them are really great and some of them are really bad. And there's a lot of factors that go into like deciding whether it's good or bad. I think it depends really heavily on the people who are working on the adaptation and like whether they include the original author in the process and like who's directing and who they pick to act in it. I think with movies you lose so much detail from the book, but like with TV shows you get a bit more of it because there's obviously more hours in a TV show most of the time.
Mhm.
But I think like the purposes of a TV show or movie are very different to the purpose of a book. Like obviously TV shows and movies are very, very visual. Um so you have to judge them as like two separate works of media. Like with the Hunger Games, for example, um there's a very different tone to the books than to the movies. Both are great. They're both
I
great, but they have
I
a different
have
feel.
I have the biggest complaint about the Hunger Games
Oh.
movies.
Oh, the disability representation is a huge one for me in the movies. They don't include like half of the
Oh,
disabilities that the characters have.
that's an entirely other thing. They are missing a very key plot point because they wanted to dramatize that Katniss was alone in the movies. But that is not the case in the books. She was best friends with the mayor's fucking daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And the mayor's daughter played a big part throughout the series in the books. And they just left her out of the movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like that changed the tone. They wanted Katniss to be alone and, like, this solo person that couldn't make friends for the movies.
It's I've seen people talk about how in the books Katniss has this sort of like nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm like a social reject kind of attitude, but then like the evidence of the characters around her shows that that's not true. She just has this like really negative self-belief, like there's like survival kind of self-belief. It's really interesting. But yeah, the movie loses that. The movie loses some of the detail because they don't want to add too many characters in. They don't want to make it confusing for the viewer. They have way less time to make it make sense. Like
I don't know.
that's
I feel
yeah.
like they could have included like the small snippet of the mayor's daughter from like the first book and then had her pop back up again when the mayor was relevant later in the series. Because I don't know, it just felt really shitty that they left that out because she did play an actual important role in the plot. That Katniss is relatable and people do like Katniss and Katniss does like other people. She's not just mean to everyone.
Mhm.
I don't know. That was just a really big gripe that I had because I am a read the books before the movie kind of person. And
Yeah.
I read the book. I read all of the books before the first movie released and was very upset to find out that details like that were cut because I felt like they were important.
There definitely are details missing from the movie. If you look at it from somebody who's like read the books first, there are details missing in the movies. But I think for like, I genuinely do think like they're pretty good. They're very good adaptations. They're very good movies. They're fun to watch.
Yeah,
They're
they're
engaging.
good.
There's just stuff that is not in them that is in the books, which is why I think you have to judge them separately. You know.
However, I stand on my fucking milk crate that Aragon never should have been adapted to film.
Hmm.
I think the Aragon adaptations are absolutely awful.
I've never seen them. I never read the books though. So
I don't recommend that you see them. Even if you don't read the books, I still think the movies are trash.
Damn.
They're not well done. Yeah, they're not well done.
we unlocked something in you, Becca.
Real.
Passion.
I am a big hater for when you take something that is actually done really well in the book and just fucking ruin it. I'm not a big adaptations person anymore. So I used to get so excited about a movie or a show coming out based on a book that I've read.
Mm.
And there are only a few times that I haven't been disappointed with the adaptations. To one of them that I enjoy are the 3 movies for All the Boys I've Loved Before. I love the adaptation for that because I feel like they made it entirely its own thing. Like the story is different, the characters are the same, but the story is different and it ends better in the movies. So that's one of the few times that I'm like, okay, the movies are the canon that exist in my brain and not the book. But also, that was done with the author as one of like the executive producers of the movies. I've also never watched Harry Potter because I know that I'll be disappointed.
Oh, that's another. When I was younger, I really liked both the books and the movies. But again, loads more detail in the books. I do not support J.K. Rowling at all in any way.
I also
But
don't, but
when I was younger, I did really enjoy the books. I think I read the series 8 times throughout being middle school.
I enjoyed the books after I read them for the first time, but I knew that I didn't want to ruin my viewpoint of the characters by watching the show. You know? Like, I had them visualized in my head, and I didn't want to change how they are in my mind by looking at how they behave on film.
Fair enough.
So I've just never watched any bit of it. Like, I know what the characters look like. Obviously, it would be really hard to avoid knowing what the cast of Harry Potter looks like. But I've never watched a single one of the movies. Like, I've seen little snippets, but I've never sat and watched one all the way through because I don't have the drive to ruin the magic that is in my mind of them.
Prisoner of Azkaban was my favorite movie for a while in my teens.
Order of the Phoenix was my favorite book.
I liked Deathly Hallows was my favorite book for sure.
Prisoner of Azkaban was my favorite.
I watched a movie, did not read any of the books, and I don't remember which movie I watched, but it was not the first.
So I grew up with Harry Potter. My mom read the books and then I would read the books after she read like each book, and I would go see the movies as they came out. So it was like a really big part of my childhood. So I think I have a very nostalgic not reverence, but it kind of like not shaped me to who I am today, but like it was very influential in my childhood. And I think for a lot of people that grew up with Harry Potter and really enjoyed it, having J.K. Rowling be the person that she is was really disappointing and disheartening, because even though it was not like very good writing, like retrospectively, like there were still like a lot of themes that younger people identified with, and like the general idea of uh the things that they took away from the books are things that like developed into core values and like belief systems that they hold as adults, which aren't the ones that J.K. Rowling herself holds.
Which is wild that she accurately wrote things that she's against.
Yeah.
But she's like become Umbridge against
Yeah.
her students are just trans people. Like she is the Umbridge of trans people. It's horrible. But it's like I always have viewed it as, well, not always, but I've recently developed the philosophy that reading is a dialogue between the author and the reader, and the reader brings just as much to the story as the author does, because the interpretation and the imagination is like a huge part of a story, right? You need the reader, and everybody takes different things away from a book. So actually, most of the things you learn from books, even if the author is a terrible person, the things you learn are not from the author. The things you learn are like from yourself and your own interpretation of things. So I've sort of made my peace with that in terms of J.K. Rowling, because I know I love those books and I know that they probably had an effect on me. I also know that I'm an ally to trans people, and I do not agree with her many myriad problematic statements. So
I will say that I am a big art is open to your interpretation and books are art. Like they're written art, but they are art. So art is subjective to every single person that reads it, which is why like a book can be really poorly written but be one of the best things that you've read because you relate to something in it more than you have anything else.
And I'm thinking,
My son just in the background went, yeah.
Real.
I'm thinking about Neil Gaiman right now as well, because he recently came out as being like a sexual predator, and he didn't come out as that. It came out that he is one, you know. But like he's
can
done
we start calling it
horrible.
that whenever people get outed like
Oh,
that?
no.
Can we start
He
saying
came out.
so and so came out as a predator?
But what I mean
That's
is it came out that he is a sexual predator and he's done some horrible, horrible things to women. And I actually got rid of my books by him, because I didn't want to look at them on my shelf, because they've all got his portrait on the back, all the recent printings, and it's just like I don't want to see that. I don't want to see him. I don't want to be reminded. But there are some franchises, like adaptations, like the Good Omens thing, where he worked with Terry Pratchett to write Good Omens. And I love Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett's I probably will own more books by Terry Pratchett than I do any other author. And I have to believe that, I mean, he didn't know that Neil Gaiman was a predator when he worked with him.
Unfortunately, people that are usually really good at hiding it from people that they're working with.
but like I still can enjoy the adaptation, like TV adaptation of Good Omens and stuff, because I see Terry's influence in it more than I see Neil Gaiman's. But I find it really hard because I have formed like an emotional attachment to stories I like, and when I find out that the person who created that story is a person who I wouldn't want like within 10 feet of me, and or anyone I care about, or anyone at all, really, when it comes down to it. That's why I developed this like philosophy of like books are a dialogue, and just because the person who wrote it is a bad person doesn't mean that the story itself is bad.
Which unfortunately has happened to me of recent because I was so adamant on not reading Akatar because of the things that I had seen about uh Sarah J. Maas, and I was like, I don't want to read it, but I know that these are right up my alley, right? And I
Mhm.
hate that I actually enjoy them, but I'm separating the art from the artist here
And like,
because
this is where buying secondhand books is a really great way to not send money to people who you don't approve
yeah,
of the way that they
that's
use
yeah.
their money.
I definitely got that second hand and not
Hey,
in
don't
other
out yourself. Don't
ways.
out yourself.
In
I
other
borrowed it. I
news.
borrowed it from the library.
Okay, nice.
You know, the library of
Okay.
library.
The library of library.
As for me, it's great. TV adaptions usually means anime for me since I read a lot of manga.
Mm.
And I feel like back in the, early 2000s, even up to like 2010s, they would start anime. I mean, I guess they still do it, but now they do it to where it's seasons rather than just continuous. So instead of writing their own ending because the manga's not done, they're actually like holding off until the manga's finished to continue. And I appreciate that.
I will say, I don't read manga for this reason because I love anime and I love experiencing things for the first time,
Mm.
like on screen for anime.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Go ahead.
my 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 husband read the manga for Demon Slayer because he wanted to know what happened. And I looked at him and I go, do not fucking tell me because I already know one spoiler that I didn't want to know that is coming. And I was like, don't tell me
Mm-hmm.
because
Well,
it'll ruin the viewing. Sorry, Raiden was screaming, so I stopped talking so it wouldn't come through my mic.
um, yeah, I'm a little more choosy when it comes to anime, like of what's finished and what's not. Like I like to watch the first season of things when they first come out and they're like really hyped. But then I usually like fall off and wait until they're complete to just binge it all.
I'm usually a hype hater. I don't like watching things because they're popular. I wait until the hype dies down, and then maybe I'll dip my toes into it. And then if I like it, I'll stick around.
Real. I think it's funny
I
because if I see an anime that I like, 9 times out of 10, I will just go read the manga. Like I will go seek out the manga and then just read it, and then I won't watch the anime because I'm like, I want the unabridged original format, unless it's an original anime, in which case I'll watch it because I don't have anything else. But I'm just in the habit. I think it's true for other adaptations too, for like movies and TV shows. I'm like, let me just read the book and just see what the book is about. So I don't have somebody else's interpretation like clouding what I originally read.
Yeah, I feel though like recently anime is pretty straight from the manga now, which I appreciate.
I do feel like a lot of anime now is having the manga written alongside the creation of the anime. Like they're releasing like volume 1 with season 1, like they're keeping pretty steady with releasing them at the same time so that there's not spoilers one direction or the other.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it's positive for me for adaptations.
Generally, I tend to enjoy book adaptations overall, like even if it's considered bad. as long as it's like entertaining in some way, like even if it's not meant to be funny, if it ends up being funny because it's so bad, I generally still enjoy that. Like, honestly, like the Harry Potter movies, the Hunger Games movies, the even the Twilight movies, like those are like the big three that come to mind, because those were the most influential in my like teenagehood. Like, even though like there are some aspects of them that aren't that like good, I'm looking at Twilight specifically. I still think it's entertaining. Like the first Twilight movie, even though Jacob's wig is so fucking bad and like some of the
good,
lines are
though.
fucking cringe, it's so good. The color palette, the camera work, like it's just so good.
I do love the Forks color lens that they used. It's
Yes.
fantastic. I think that it perfectly set the tone for how the movies needed to look.
All right. Last question. And this, I want one answer. Let's say it. If you could only read one book for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Let's go left to right.
Okay.
Let's not start with me.
Wait, no,
go
wait,
right to
wait. I
left.
didn't even come up with an answer.
All right.
Okay.
Right to left. Got it. I'll go. It's the one, Chesh, that I've been reading, my long read. It's called Cheeky Brat. Great.
Mhm.
It's long. It's, I think, 23 volumes. So it's a long manga series. And I like it personally because of the characters, like, yes, the character development, but just the like characters in general that are fleshed out, like the extras. Because I feel like you could make a spin-off of like any of the background characters, and I appreciate that part. But also from just like their relationship, and like it takes place, I want to say, like from a 6-year span, from like when they're in high school to when they're about to graduate college, and all their troubles and tribulations from like their first kiss to when they start dating to their first time and everything in between. I appreciate it. It's like fully fleshed out. And yeah. So that's mine. I would read it over and over again.
Okay.
All right, May.
May.
Well, I don't really have an answer because I don't reread books. But I guess Neil Gaiman's Smoke and Mirrors, because it's a
Ooh.
collection of short stories, and it's probably one of my favorite Neil Gaiman books. Just because it was also the first Neil Gaiman book. Well, not the first Neil Gaiman book, the first like Neil Gaiman short story compilation book that I had read, and I really liked the stories from it. So I feel like I could reread like tons of little stories instead of just one big book, you know.
That one, and Fragile Things. I read a lot.
Yes.
I have the audiobook, so when I read a lot a few years
I
ago.
I bought Fragile Things at the bookstore last year, because I took, because like, you know, getting back into reading, I need to be reminded of like my favorite authors and stuff like that. And one of my friends mentioned Neil Gaiman. I was like, oh, holy shit, I should read a Neil Gaiman book. And she's like, you should read Fragile Things. So I picked it up. I have not read it yet.
There's a story in that where a woman eats a cat, and it's great.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
Cool.
It's really well
Awesome.
told. You know, separating the art from the artist again.
Also, the complete works of, okay, I have 2 books that I could read for the rest of my life.
No.
Also the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
My God.
Yeah.
Solid.
Okay, I'm done.
For me, I would probably pick The Birthday of the World and Other Stories by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's my favorite short story collection by her. It ends with this really long story called Paradise is Lost, which is I really like. And it's got like a lot of her like Hainish cycle short stories that like examine a lot of different worlds that like have slightly different like origins and stuff. I like it because it's got variety, and like I've read all the stories so much already that I know I like it and I can keep rereading it. So I think if I had to read one book for the rest of my life, I think I could probably manage that. And I was worried when I chose that. I felt like a short story collection was cheating. But May also picked a short story collection, and Kimmy picked a 23-volume manga series.
Yeah.
So I think I'm good. I
You're
think I am good.
My selection is shorter. It's a little less than 400 pages. And it's self-indulgent because I think it's one of the first books I picked back up when I was starting reading. And it's The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. And Eve might recognize that name because that was the person who reviewed This Is How We Lose the Time War on the front cover. And I'm a sucker for mythology. I enjoyed it when I was a kid, and I still do now as an adult. And it's really just mythology fanfic of Achilles during the Trojan War. I don't care. It's a great book. I absolutely love the prose in that book. And I've read literally every book Madeline Miller has ever written. And I love her with my whole heart. So I would definitely reread it over and over again.
And Mrs. Becca.
I'm gonna pull a Kimmy, and I'm just gonna say the entirety of the Empyrean series I'll probably be able to reread time and time again and pick out different things I enjoy each time.
Mhm.
Because
I don't know if the series is technically one book, but I mean,
Kimmy
Kimmy
chose
Hey,
Kimmy chose
hey.
23 volumes of a manga.
Hey.
I'm
it's
saying that I would reread
different.
front cover to last end cover time and time again the 5 books that will be in this series over and over again because I've already reread the first 3 multiple times.
Who of them
and
aren't
I've
even
enjoyed-
out yet? It's a
I
bold
know.
claim. What if it ends really badly?
Oh no.
Then I will still know that I loved the first half of the story.
True.
I could care less because my suspicion is at the end everybody is dead. That's just
Oh
my
my God.
suspicion.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. GG's, I
The
guess.
the first thing in the book says that this is faithfully transcribed to preserve the
Everybody
honor.
except Jacinia dies.
I also have a theory about that, but
Oh no.
anyway,
Can't
that
get
is
into
my
this
pick.
right
Is
now.
the Empyrean series would be
Alright.
my pick.
Well, you guys heard it. You got our book opinions, manga opinions, adaptation, everything. Now y'all know. But thank you for chilling with us. Anyone got a question for the people?
Can you send me book recs, please, and thank you. That's not a question, but it's a statement. Thank you.
Put Rex in
drop
the
your
comments.
favorite
We
book in the
like
comment.
lesbians. We like lesbians.
Real. Write that down,
Yes.
please, guys. Please.
Yes, if you can give me a book that feels like Honey Girl, I will love you forever.
All right. You heard it. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next podcast, whenever that is. We don't have a schedule anymore.
Nope.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.